Community Board 12, Shomrim, money, political clout, corruption, Jeremy Reichberg. The players in a high-stakes game of pseudo-law enforcement, borough park favoritism and political pandering. Lost Messiah, April 19, 2016. We owe a lot to our contributors who provide us with information, stories and leads. Every once in a while there are those who provide us with information. And it is hard for us to tell where one story begins and another ends, or where another begins and the second one ends. This is one such story. New York City Hasidic community politics is very complicated. There are private-public community boards, and then there are the volunteer Shomrim, protectors, and the paid police fire ambulance. The presence of the Shomrim requires the intricate cooperation of municipal organizations including the police, fire department and emergency services. The emergency services in many of these communities are privately owned, privately funded charities. In some cases, those so-called charities offer high-paying salaries and preferential treatment. The existence of the Shomrim alone is a source of financial necessity, and, of course, the funds flowing into and out of each Shomrim organization can be boundless. It is not clear how it is actually calculated or accounted for, from where the funds are received and to where the funds are distributed. Articles on this topic are somewhat inconsistent as are, we guess, the funds themselves. We do know for certain that taxpayer funds are involved and may be extensive. While some of the details of the Shomrim organizations may be sketchy, what is clear is that the power brokers within the ultra-Orthodox community, whether within the seats they hold as publicly elected officials or within the vast network of Hasidic charitable LLCs, have largely unencumbered access to money, political clout, police protection, government advocacy, increased allocations of public assistance, and the list goes on and on. In our view, the players listed below, amongst a larger group, have created the structural framework for years of almost near lawlessness, the flow of endless sums of money, zoning and rezoning, the boundless sustenance of a highly insular community, and the flow of taxpayer money into the linings of very specific pockets. Trying to unwind the fabric of those pockets of corrupt public officials and ultra-Orthodox businessmen is like trying to carefully untangle a spider web into silk thread, equally as sticky and perhaps equally as toxic. You never know when the wolf is going to be a spider or the spider a black widow, nor do you know when it is going to attack. With the arrest of Shia Alex Lichtenstein, we would not have considered the Shomrim to be an access point for arms dealing, falsifying gun licenses and bribery and conspiracy related thereto. That possibility had not come across our desktops, and we have debated all day whether we would have believed it if it had. Lichtenstein and co. have been added as players in this game of scandal and corruption today. In 2016, a high-level probe into funds that were spent on banquets for New York City cops, McDonald Avenue, brought Community Board 12, CB12, into the limelight. CB12 is the community board out of Borough Park, Precinct 66. It was in that precinct that Hamlet Peralta owned a club frequented by NYPD police officials. It may have been in that club that Hamlet Peralta conducted his businesses, including a Ponzi scheme in which Norman Seabrook invested $5 million of Corrections Officers Benevolent Association funds. It was at about that time that we were introduced to two people who have become synonymous with New York City shady wheeling and dealing. We will focus on one of those two, who we have referred to as Player 1. Player 1, Jeremy Reichberg. Within the context of that probe, we were introduced to Jeremy Reichberg, who allegedly kept his nephew, Shlomo Reichberg, from the long arm of the law with some of his connections within the Shomrim in Borough Park and other New York City officials, allegedly including police officers and potentially heads of law enforcement. The Daily News reported on April 10, 2016, exclusive, Jeremy Reichberg, Brooklyn bigwig and FBI corruption probe, allegedly used NYPD connections to help nephew escape assault charges. It would seem that the Shomrim and CB12 have some incestuous relationships within both organizations. According to one article, his nephew, Shlomo Reichberg, was part of a gang of disassociated Hasidic teens called Grautlich, which means forks in Yiddish, community sources said. The Hasidic hooligans were involved in two reported violent attacks in 2012, according to the victims. Jeremy Reichberg, along with Jonah Rechnitz, may very well be guilty of fraud, money laundering, bribery, and trading contributions for favors in high-level political arenas. With regard to this story, Reichberg and his connections within the Hasidic community of Borough Park direct much of the activity within and without that community and may have farther reach woven within greater New York politics. Player 2, Penny Ringel. Penny Ringel has been mentioned before in connection to the McDonald Avenue banquet. But his close ties to Assemblyman Dov Hikind and Mayor de Blasio should not be overlooked. While arguably he is, after all, the liaison between Mayor de Blasio and the ultra-Orthodox community, he is also the Twitter account feeder for Community Board 12. While his own personal Twitter feed has been on again, off again recently, the fact that he is the public source of information gives him significant power. He can censor and edit the information in and out of the community at will. And this is part and parcel to the reasons why his importance to all of the players in the Manhattan Borough Park community should not be dismissed. Penny Ringel, however, is no stranger to controversy. In November of 2012 it was reported that BSSP Borough Park Shomrim member Penny Ringel Unit 60 allegedly impersonates the NYPD. Penny Ringel, a longtime member of BSSP Borough Park Shomrim, is the former owner of High Tech 2000, a cell phone store on 13th Avenue in Borough Park. He has also worked for over a decade in Brooklyn politics. Ringel entered the political arena in 2002 as a community liaison for then-Nick Councilman Simcha Felder. He maintained that position until Felder resigned from the city council in 2010. Ringel has also worked for Mayor Bloomberg's 2 re-election campaigns. Following Simcha Felder's resignation from the city council, Ringel found a job in Nick Public Advocate Bill de Blasio's office as a community liaison. In 2014, the same Penny Ringel, who had impersonated a member of the Shomrim, was appointed by Mayor de Blasio as senior leader to the Jewish community. We guess that integrity was not one of the qualifications for the job. Player number 3, Moshe Weider. Moshe Weider may have been able to set his seat at the first player position. He is, like may others mentioned in and out of the potentially shady land of Hasidic business, a philanthropist. He seems to work and not work, as detailed in articles below. Regardless of whether or not he actually does work the alleged 70-hour days, he has somehow managed to amass a fortune, including a $500K plus salary from 2 charities that take in millions in contributions. Mr. Weider is also first vice chairman of Community Board 12, which, if you will recall, hosted the banquet on March 21. See below for of historical context and more information. Player number 4, David Greenfield. David Greenfield's place in the political structure of New York Hasidic communities begs no real introduction. His power and influence are obvious from the description available on New York City's own website. David G. Greenfield was elected to the New York City Council in a special election on March 23, 2010 and overwhelmingly